For some guys, sex is like a pass-fail test, where failing feels like the end of the world. That pressure kills erections. This hypnosis session is designed to help you shift your relationship with success and failure, so you stop treating sex like a test. The pressure drops, and your body gets to feel turned on again. If you want to skip straight to the hypnosis part, just go here. Heads up though, if you're looking for a big rah-rah, pump you up, you're going to be amazing every time kind of session, sorry, this ain't it. To me, doing that type of hypnosis work is like trying to bury your head in the sand, pretending that if you can just bury it deep enough, then you'll be perfect. It's not realistic. I'm going to talk a little bit about the approach on this one, but again, if you want to skip straight to the hypnosis session, just go here. Quick story. A hypnotherapist friend of mine was in a bar one time, and he ran into a guy with a public speaking issue. This guy had worked with the very best psychiatrists, psychologists, and hypnotherapists across Europe. No one had been able to help him. When it was time to perform, he'd still panic. My friend asked him one simple question. "Are you allowed to screw up?" And the guy said, "No." That was the problem right there. Everyone had pumped him up and tried to convince him that he was really smart and he was a really good speaker and he was going to do great. But somewhere in the back of his mind was a very realistic part of him that recognized that imperfection is always a possibility. What I hope you'll get out of listening to this hypnosis session, and I hope you listen to it more than once, repetition helps, is a different relationship with sex. One where you've let go of the idea that it's a pass-fail test. A relationship where you can be open, relaxed, curious, where you just feel good about sex, regardless of how it goes. When that's the way you feel in your heart, in your body, in your thinking, they can all just kind of relax, can't they? From there, I think you'll find your erections flow really naturally. Again, that shift usually doesn't happen in one listen, but if you stay with it, if you let your body absorb this over time, I think you'll find things start to change. Not because you forced it, because you just find yourself thinking and feeling differently. A few quick things before we start. First off, in most of the work I'm doing with clients, there are almost always underlying issues we're resolving before we can do anything like this session. We can't do that in the video, but I think this can still help. And if you ever want to talk about working with me live, just give me a call or drop me a note. I've helped a ton of guys resolve their ED over the past 20 years or so. Maybe I can help you too. Second, people have different levels of hypnotizability. It's a bell curve. Folks who are on the more hypnotizable end of the spectrum will probably get a lot more out of this. If you're not very hypnotizable, I suggest my self-treatment for psychological erectile dysfunction video. Great set of tools there for more analytical folks. Third, the best hypnosis work is done as part of an interactive process. When I'm working with a client, I really want to be able to know what the words are, the ideas and feelings are that are important to them. Then I can work that into any work that we're doing, into the suggestions I'm making. It's the stuff that really resonates with the client the most that's most likely to help them change in a positive way. All that said, there's some really common themes I see with guys with psychological ED, so again, I think it's possible to do a session like this in a way that will resonate with and really help a lot of guys, especially if you can listen the right way. If you were listening to a regular podcast or book, you'd probably be analyzing the information, actively thinking about what you'd do with it, or maybe even thinking about what you'd say back to the person speaking. For this, I'd encourage you to listen to it the way you'd listen to soft music, just kind of passively listening and absorbing it, maybe even enjoying it. Even if what I'm saying may seem to be totally off topic or maybe not make a lot of sense, you've probably been stressing a bit about the problem. You can think of this as a chance to just kind of relax and assume I'm going to be the one who's doing the work for a while and whatever I'm up to, you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Time to turn off the chainsaw, shut down the bulldozer, park the car. To get the most out of this and to be 100% safe, you want to be in a comfortable place where you can sit or lie down, where you can close your eyes and relax for a while without any disturbance or distraction. Oh, and you may notice some music in the background. Those are binaural beats. There's a fair amount of research that's been done to prove they can help the brain go into sleep meditation type states more easily. Headphones or earbuds are ideal to help you get the full effect. So you can hit pause here if you want to get yourself situated. I'll do a 10-second countdown, and then we can begin.
Low expectations means everyone ends up happy. You can trust your Stop trying altogether. And notice what happens. Let go of trying altogether. Let go of trying altogether.
All right. Let's get comfortable. Now, if your eyes are still open, you can let them close when they're ready. There's nothing you need to see in the outside right now, though you may begin to sense the possibility of comfort drifting in before we even start. Because when it comes to hypnosis, some people succeed by letting go. Others let go to succeed. And sometimes it can go beyond both to the point where neither feels twice as good as in trance. And as you begin listening to the sound of my voice, you might notice your breathing starting to slow, all by itself. And you don't need to change it, just notice it. Even partially is good enough. Each breath a little softer, a little deeper, a little slower. Because some people realize trance began the moment they stopped trying. Others only recognize it afterwards, when they look back and see where the shift really started. Now, you might not know which one this is yet. It doesn't matter. As long as you can give yourself permission to feel comfortable, letting go of any expectations you may be holding about hypnosis, about this trance. Because you may have some ideas in your mind about what it would be like to feel hypnotized. You may have some ideas in your mind about what it would be like to go into a deep trance. And you may already be wondering, would going into a deep trance feel like I think it would? How much would you have to let go of to do so? Just like you may be wondering here before we even really start, what would it be like to know about the feeling of letting go of the need to succeed in the old way and starting to succeed in one of the other ways that fits with who you're becoming now?
You can either try to succeed by letting go of needing to succeed, or you can just let go of trying altogether and notice what happens instead.
How good might that feel to start to ease forward that way? I don't know. But you may begin to realize that you don't need to know right now. As a matter of fact, there's nothing you need to do as you listen, other than breathe and let your body do the things it knows how to do.
You can let go now.
Because I've seen some people try to go into a trance. Their brows furrow and their bodies tense up, which is one way of approaching things.
Yeah, not that great an idea.
With trance, you don't have to succeed now to become someone who does naturally over time. Because more than anything, trance is natural partially is good enough. And I've seen some clients succeed by trying less, others by not trying yet,
Try to succeed by letting
and others who just kind of forget to try at all.
trying all together and notice what happens instead. You can trust your body.
And you don't have to figure out which one is for you, because very likely some part of you is already getting the idea of letting yourself relax for a while, or maybe even going into a trance. But as someone who's done a lot of this kind of thing, I'm quite confident in saying there are lots of different types of trances. Some go deeper. A deep trance is where it can feel like your body is sleeping, and my words are more absorbed than actually processed in any particular way by your conscious mind. Some trances are wider, more like an expansion of consciousness, where your field of possibilities can open way up. Sometimes they're partial, and that's more than good enough. Sometimes your thoughts go into a trance. Sometimes your body goes into a trance.
Drifting down, deeper and deeper, drifting down,
Sometimes
deeper.
just your thoughts go into a trance. Sometimes just your body goes into a trance. And sometimes someone can feel like they're not in a trance at all, even though after a suggestion like, you can let go of the number 6, they're deeply puzzled when they count on their fingers and find that there are 11 of them. It's a pretty weird moment, especially for someone who didn't feel hypnotized.
What if you gave just 5%
So,
less of a fuck?
you're welcome to go into trance in whatever way feels the healthiest, the most positive, the most fun, the most effective way that might be right for you here today. Consciously hold on to anything you'd like to hold on to. And that's totally fine. And you're unconscious. Can let go of anything you might like to let go of now. Not letting go of anything consciously any more or less than your unconscious might like to enjoy letting go of some of the ideas that had been holding you back for a while back then. And even if you were only partially successful, could you imagine what it would be like to find that that was more than good enough? And whether that feels good in your body to let go or otherwise, you can let your jaw relax. You can let the back of your tongue relax. And as you hold on to anything else you might like to begin to explore outside of, you may be beginning to wonder what it would be like if more and more territory began to be added to some of those old maps of yours. How many more ways could you find yourself exploring beyond the constraints of any leftover beliefs from your past?
You don't even have to believe you're succeeding. For
And in
someone
fact,
inside you to go ahead and
the less you try to force trance, the better this works. So you might even start to notice how many things in life actually work that way. Trying to fall asleep, trying to enjoy a song,
not that great an idea.
trying to walk cool. The harder you try, the further away it gets. But the moment you slow down The moment you let go, just a little, even partially, is good enough. Something can shift, maybe open and close in the best ways possible. And isn't it nice to know your body can do both at the same time? And it likes to. And it just happens. This session can be like that for you. So if your mind wants to wander, that's fine. It'll come back. And if part of you feels like it's not doing it right, that's fine too. The part of you that does that kind of messaging might enjoy some of the new resources it can connect with here as you listen.
Maybe the moment you stop trying to succeed is the moment.
And if you feel like you've caught on to any of the more subtle messages I've embedded in this recording, well, feel free to enjoy. It works even better that way.
You can either try to succeed by letting
Because
go of
here,
succeed.
It's
Or
safe
you can
to
just
let go of
try
all that old
altogether.
stuff for a while. Because a partially successful trance is usually even more deeply lasting than a perfect one. And the more you let go,
Drifting down.
the more space you make in your body, in your mind, to do exactly what they were designed to do together. Now that you've had the chance to prepare a little, well, let's begin. I'll ask you to start to notice the tiny muscles around your eyes. Allow them to soften just enough to feel good.
After you notice you've succeeded to fail to test yourself.
And as those muscles relax, you might feel a little wave of comfort begin spreading down from the top of your head, across your forehead, around your cheeks and jaw, letting go of tension you may not have even been noticing was there.
You can let go of all of it.
And that wave moves down now into your shoulders, heavy and warm, or maybe more light and floating. Your arms, your hands, your chest, your belly. No need to force anything. It's easy to just let it happen. Just notice where your body naturally begins to ease and soften, to relax. Even partially is good enough. All the way down now, through your groin, your legs, into your feet. I can't see you right now, but my guess is that you're doing perfectly, even if it's only partial. Now, I'll ask you to open up your eyes, reacquaint yourself with your surroundings, noticing maybe something in your environment that you'd never really considered before, and closing your eyes back down, letting yourself drift and float easily and comfortably. So much so that in a moment, as I'll count from 5 to 1, you can imagine yourself dropping twice as deep into this relaxed, comfortable state. 5. Drifting. 4. A bit deeper now. 3. not letting go of your expectations any more quickly than it feels good to step outside of the box to find you might look back later and say, I won. When I succeeded to fail and expectation policing so I could just relax twice as deep. Maybe to the point where it might be nice from here going forward to let yourself relax even deeper. So again, I'll count this time 5 times deeper. 5. Do you want to start by experimenting with success in the moment, or by letting go of the idea of success entirely? 4. Deeper down. 3. Would you rather explore what's underneath the pressure to succeed, or what's possible without it?
Good enough is a success.
2. Deeper down.
Good enough sex is sexy.
1. Thing that might be interesting to find is where exactly the moment you stop trying to succeed becomes the moment you start getting hard and going deeper now.
Drifting down.
And then open up your eyes, reacquaint yourself with where you are, with when you are, with how you've been being, and all the possibilities of how you might be becoming more deeply yourself, with the feeling that you're much more than you think you've been as you close your eyes back down, letting yourself drift and float even deeper now. Knowing, even partially, is good enough. From here on, it's okay if the sound of my voice comes and goes. It's okay if thoughts drift in and out. It's okay if your conscious mind forgets to pay attention so that your unconscious mind can pay even closer attention. Just like it's okay for your unconscious to relax along with your body so that your conscious mind can be free to drift or to float or go anywhere it likes. Images or thoughts that may seem random can all be part of the gentle transformation you may find yourself in your thinking, this relationship with yourself. Just let everything soften on the inside. Kindness in letting go
You can live.
of your awareness that can gently float above your body like a balloon. Watching from a distance, you might feel like you're comfortably sinking or lightly floating, or both at the same time.
You can let go.
Some people describe this as heaviness. Others describe it as a light, tingly emptiness. Whatever you feel is totally fine. And opening up your eyes again and closing them back down so that now we can go even deeper.
Drifting down.
In a moment, I'll count from 10 down to 1, with each number going deeper as long as it feels good to let your body sleep while your awareness and your mind stays present. 10. Body failing to get tense now. 9. Thoughts softening, behind the success of an 8, mind relaxing with permission to fail to do much of anything right now. Nothing to do. 7, no effort needed to succeed to be 6,
Enough is a success.
gentle, slow, and letting go of 5, stillness, deepening as slowly as it might feel good to let go of your expectations for yourself, and the feeling that you may fail to hear the rest of the numbers and succeed in letting go of your thoughts growing more still, or maybe finding yourself in that place in the middle where new possibilities can begin to open while you begin to fail to get a sense of how nice it can feel to do both at the same time. And that's okay to 3. Drift deeply now, up through an image of the word fail, right between the A and the I.
Let yourself feel comfortable.
Think there's more inside that you can
You can either try to succeed by letting go of needing to succeed,
successfully go up even higher,
go of trying all together,
up past the word success,
and notice what happens instead.
to the point where it feels good to let go of some of those ideas, like letting go of one of those old balloons. While you drift down through old memories, words letting go, through old stories, time to let go. Old ideas, letting go. Through old feelings, letting go. And out through 2 of the best ways to let the body resting, mind aware of all the space around you.
Maybe the moment you stop trying to succeed is the moment you start.
One thing you may begin to wonder about is just what you might see if you ever went to a place beyond the fixed points of succure and fell sex. One thing you may begin to wonder about is just what you might see if you ever went to a place beyond the fixed point of succure and fail sex now.
You don't even have to believe you're succeeding.
And if you were looking back from out beyond, and you could see all the space, the possibility in between,
For something inside you to go ahead and succeed anyway.
what will the colors be? And what will they sound like to have all that space in between sex fail and fail suck?
You don't even have to believe you're
What kinds of things would you begin to hear as you were looking at that space in between?
You don't even have to believe you're succeeding.
What kind of things do you think you'd begin to feel as you heard those things inside of all that space in between? How do you think those feelings might shift or change as you move even further out past those fixed points of your success or suck fail?
Sexy.
How do you think those feelings might shift or change as you move even farther out past those fixed points of your cess or suck fail,
Sexy.
growing like the seed in the inside, a thought or a dream where the only failure happens when you fail to remember to be kind to yourself. And the only real success is when you give yourself permission to just show up and have experiences, allowing the energy of your body and your life to continue to move you forward one small step at a time with a gentle sense of curiosity about what might happen next. Good enough.
Good enough sex is good enough.
Good enough.
Good enough sex is good enough.
Good enough.
Good enough sex is more than good.
And from here,
Good enough sex is more than good.
you can simply rest in this deep place where real change can begin now. This is where the suggestion can become real, your body calm, your mind open, and everything that happens next is just for your benefit, knowing that even partially is good enough.
Good enough sex is more than good enough.
That reminds me a little bit of a story.
The more ways you have to succeed, the harder you get.
I had a client one time, a long time ago. His issue didn't have anything at all to do with success in the bedroom. But he was a nice guy, really smart, really insightful. So when I was called on to do a speaking gig at a local college, and they asked me if I could bring a client, I thought of him. Even though on the outside, he seemed like a pretty shy guy. Not particularly sociable, not anyone who I ever would have thought of as being even all that outgoing. But when I asked him if he wanted to come and speak in front of the class, he agreed. And when the time came to do the gig, I went on first and I did my thing, talking about hypnosis. I talked a lot about what it's like when you feel hypnotized, what it's like when you go into a deep trance, what it can look like in your mind's eye if you go even deeper. I talked about the way the past can relax, the future can relax, and I even talked about the way that old beliefs can let go all by themselves in this talk that I was doing at MIT. And of course, I talked a lot about anxiety issues and how sometimes it can almost be like undoing the bow on a shoe if you were a kid. You know, something that may look like it's a bit complicated from the outside and, oh my God, do I have to figure out how this thing's originally tied in order to undo it? All those shoelace twists and turns. That's the way some people that I've worked with have thought. And what I've found is that sometimes it can actually be pretty easy. Just to give a little pull in the right place and find that the whole thing can just let go and unravel. And even partially is good enough in my book. That's what I told the class before this client of mine went on for his part of the talk. Of course, people had questions for me after my part, and even though I myself don't necessarily love being in the spotlight, what I found was that as long as I kept in mind that it's not my job to impress these people, that in the grand scheme of the entire history of the human race, the earth, the universe, whether or not I stumbled over a particular word or botched an answer or got a little nervous, it really didn't matter much. I figured I was good as long as I just showed up. A partially good talk is fine. And when I allowed myself to just show up, I found it was pretty easy to relax and just focus on the outside.
Maybe the moment you stop
The questions that the students were asking me. to successfully be present in the moment rather than in my head talking to myself. So that by the time I was finished, I was pleasantly surprised. I hadn't really noticed how much time had gone by. As I went through my performance of helping these folks understand what my experiences were like as a hypnotherapist, showing up consistently in an office from day to day. And eventually, after a good amount of time and answering the questions, and some of those questions were hard, and I found the hard questions sometimes to be the most enjoyable ones. So eventually, my time to speak came to an end, and it was time to let my client go on and do his thing, so he could talk a bit about his experience of working with me. When my client went up on stage, I noticed he had a strong energy about him. He definitely had a different vibe than he did when you were just talking to him normally. It actually reminded me of some of the things that I had heard the British magician Darren Brown say about being on stage. I really like Darren Brown, especially his book on Stoicism, where he tells a story about an experience he had on his way home from a magic convention one night. He was dressed in a purple three-piece suit. He was wearing a cape. As he was walking home, or back to his hotel, approaching him was a young guy and his girlfriend. It was pretty obvious there was a lot of conflict between the two of them. They seemed pretty drunk and they were fighting. So this guy saw Darren Brown in his purple suit and got right up in his face and said, "What the fuck are you looking at? You want to fight?" In a way that I think a lot of people really would have been scared by. Darren Brown knew he wasn't just going to be able to get on his way. And I can only imagine how much a moment like that must have weighed on both of them. It's a little bit like if you're ever on a highway here in my state, which is Massachusetts, and you see one of those weigh stations for the trucks where the trucks get weighed, which isn't anything like getting laid, even though it rhymes. But the interesting thing about those weigh stations is how often you see that they're closed. So it's easier to just kind of roll along and let all that weight go when the trucker reaches his destination and gets paid. Because I don't know about you, but I've always enjoyed getting paid. And for me, it goes back to a job that I had when I was a kid. I was only 12 years old when I started paid work. My friend Scott, though, he didn't start working until he was 14. And his motivations were kind of interesting. Because Scott had met a guy who had a motorcycle that was for sale. And there was no way he could afford the bike. No way. He thought it was way too nice for him to ever be able to afford it. But then the guy with the bike actually listened when my friend Scott told him, "Hey, if you give me the bike now, I'll slowly pay you back over time." And the guy with the motorcycle said, "Yes, it's fine to go slow." Even though his dad said that he thought that was the silliest thing in the world and there was no way he'd ever get the money. But the dad didn't know Scott. So my friend started to cut lawns and sometimes to do odd jobs for families in the neighborhood and even got a job at a local drugstore. It was getting hard for him sometimes because it was slow going, earning the money. But sometimes it gets hard, you know? When you really want something, you know what my friend found is that when it gets hard, it's best to stick with it. Slowly, or even partially is okay. Because life, you know, it gets hard for everyone. Sometimes, or some people all the time. And when it gets hard, it's best to stick with it, at least partially. That's what my friend learned working jobs that could be a little bit new or unusual or just hard. And when he did stick with it to the point where every week he'd show up at that guy's house with a little bit of money towards the bike. And every week that guy was a little bit surprised to find that his dad continued to be wrong about how dependable my friend could be. And the cool thing was that along the way, my friend got to enjoy the bike. He'd ride trails in the woods, he'd ride through the mud, he'd ride down the railroad tracks, which was all fine. The problem didn't come until he ran into the cops. Because in my town, it was illegal to ride an unregistered dirt bike on the street. So there he'd be, top speed, riding down some street with the cops right in his tail, getting closer and closer and closer, and I really don't know how scared he may have felt when he was riding at top speed, running away from the local cops, but I do think that he felt alive.
We're gonna have a good time.
And I'm pretty sure that he wasn't thinking about his debt at that moment.
What is the end of living
Funny though,
perfect? Was the
when I
beginning
think about the idea of paying back debts, I think of an article I saw a couple weeks ago. It told the story of Shep Gordon. Shep was a guy, well, let me tell you about him. He managed a big rock band a long time ago, and he was really unique because you could trust him in a business that was known for a lot of untrustworthy characters, especially back then. In the past, bands he managed knew they could trust him. He did handshake deals and everything worked out fine. He was chill, a very relaxed guy. He did his best for all the bands he managed, and he managed some really big ones. They got huge once Shep managed them. But it was the first band that he managed where he really learned about the music business and how to treat his bands. He would treat them like stars, even before they had made much money at all. He would have them riding in limos and wearing fancy, expensive clothes because he wanted them to feel like a star. He wanted them to feel like a star, to feel really successful, even though they hadn't shown they were stars at all yet. They were still playing places that were pretty small. And in the long run, this turned out to work really well. Though in the short run, things could be a little dicey, a little uncertain. He didn't always have the money to pay for everything, so he skipped out on a few bills at motels and other places where the band would stay. It got hard sometimes, yeah, but the plan worked. And his band's fame and fortune grew and grew and grew to the point where everyone got to feel really successful in spite of all the little failures to pay along the way. Everybody got rich. But what made Shep unique was he went back and he repaid all those little motels. He paid back all the people who he had bounced checks to.
the more ways you have to succeed, the harder you get.
And even though he may not have been as handsome or musically talented as some of the folks in the bands he managed, he got tons of action. Even Michael Douglas told him, "Shep, you have a way with the ladies." And he really enjoyed that for a long time. But eventually, he settled down and decided to stay and be very consistent with one woman who he married and even had some kids with. In one interview, they asked him what the hardest thing he ever had to do as a manager was, and he told the story about having to fire a guitar player in a band. And this good guy, it seemed like he was really important, like a really big deal in that band. But the band members had told Shep that this guy just wasn't working out. He was too demanding. All his expectations and demands for this or that and the other thing, and very just picky, and everything needs to be just perfect all the time. It just made for too much conflict, too much hassle, too much drama. Sometimes, it's just time to let that guy go, When it's time to let someone like him go, that was the time for that band. And Shep's job was to let that guy go. And he said it wasn't easy to let that guy go. It was hard during, and it was hard afterwards, but he did it. And everything in that band was a lot more peaceful afterwards and a lot easier from there. And even though he was fired, that guitarist knew that going forward he could trust Shep. He could trust Shep to continue to pay him his royalties, because Shep was and is a really dependable guy. Someone you could trust if you knew Shep. But the thing I always found funny about that first band he managed was how much they thought that their performances were all about the energy and the fresh attitude they could bring to a show. They were so all about the attitude that they didn't even bother to do a sound check. Most bands will do a sound check before they put on a show. Some bands will even get really fussy about their sound, being very particular. And even as the show goes on, you'll see that sometimes between the songs, they'll be talking to their crew members, trying to get every note and sound to be perfect. But these guys, they didn't give a fuck. They were all about the attitude and the energy. They just didn't think it was worth it to do a sound check. And I don't think they paid much of any attention at all to the acoustics in the room, or the mix between the bass player and the rhythm guitarist. I don't even think they much noticed how the volume was in the vocals compared to the drums. They didn't talk about that stuff. They were all about the energy. They just let that energy move. They were all about the attitude. They were all about the excitement, the energy, the show that they could create, and the give and take with a live audience. A lot more than they were paying attention to checking the individual note for note perfection of their sound. And if I listen back to some of that old stuff on YouTube, I'll admit, they sounded pretty fucking rough sometimes. Sometimes they'd miss cues, sometimes they'd be out of tune or screw up parts. But between every song, the audience sounds crazy. They were loving it. Everyone was having a good time. And it really looks like they were having a good time right along with the audience. Just like my friend Scott on his motorcycle. As scared as he may or may not have been by those cops who were right behind him, he felt alive. And I think he was having a good time too. Because at some level, I think he realized he was free. Free to do the things he wanted to do, to be the kind of guy he wanted to be, outside of anybody else's definitions of good or bad or success or even getting busted. Much later, he told me he just thought, hey, fuck it, I'm just gonna have some fun. The cops didn't always like that. As a matter of fact, you could say they never did. But my friend was a good rider, and he knew when it was a good idea to get off that road and try some different paths, to really explore new ways to ride through the woods. He found old trails that he had never known about. He made new trails himself. And eventually, he showed up and made that final payment to that guy who had sold him the bike.
You succeed every
And in that moment, I think you could say everyone felt good about the whole thing.
you succeed every time you give your body
And my friend,
to do whatever
he
you
loved
want to do.
riding that motorcycle. The guy who sold it to him loved that it turned out that he got paid.
You succeed every time.
The cops didn't love that they never caught him, but hey, whatever. They got paid. And I think, and I don't know this, but I think that guy's dad, somewhere deep inside, probably felt really good about having been wrong about how well the whole thing was going to work out. I'd bet his dad felt really good about that. To find that something that he had expected to go one way actually went in a really different way that worked out really well for all involved. It's nice to be able to have some faith in things restored, right? Because as teenagers, I think we're all in that place where we start to gain more and more independence from our parents. And for a lot of people, what they'll do is just move that need for approval over onto their friends or their girlfriends or their boyfriends. And I think my friend moved right through that stage out the other side where he just didn't give a fuck. He was good with himself, and he was willing to ride without really giving a fuck what any of those other people may have said, especially the cops, because who needs small-minded, small-town cops, right? And yeah, I get that the idea of not giving a fuck while riding a motorcycle may or may not seem familiar to you, but the one thing I can say for sure is that my friend had not read Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, because he was riding a long time before that book had even been written. Yeah, my friend, he may have felt a bit scared at times, and he found he could not give a fuck at the same time as he was riding down the road with the cops just about to catch him. But I don't think his not giving a fuck was all that subtle. So maybe he was ahead of his time. Or maybe it was one of those things where you just realize it's time for you to move past some of those ideas that you picked up in school about how important it is to follow the rules, all that, oh, I need to pass this test, or I need this teacher to give me a good grade, or that kid to like me, or whatever.
You can let go of
You just kind of outgrow all that at a certain stage of life, right? I know for my friend, it was part of growing up. To not give a fuck. Being able to explore what it's like to live outside the box of other people's expectations with no fucks to give. To be able to grow to a place where you could live life like a rebel in an old Johnny Cash song and look back in your past to feel how good it feels to be free to have lots of space, to move outwards and beyond the neurochemical activity in other people's brains that's all opinions ever really were anyways. And isn't it nice to know that now that you're all grown up, you don't have to be subtle about it at all. So anyways, I don't know anything about what his debt situation may or may not have been at that point a long time ago, but Darren Brown stayed calm, even in the face of what a lot of people would say was a pretty stressful situation, even though he knew there was a really good chance that that big drunk guy was going to stomp him. There was some tension, I'm sure, but I think he let himself relax into that feeling.
You can trust your body.
He knew that you can just relax into that feeling and let it move through your body. Even partially. Maybe even to the point where it starts to feel like excitement. It's good enough. He didn't try to fight what was happening in his body. And he didn't try to fight what was happening with the guy. Instead, he said,
"The wall outside my house isn't 4 foot high."
and the drunk guy said, "What? Say that again." So Darren Brown said,
It's not 4 foot high. I lived in Spain for a bit, the walls were much higher, but if you look at them here, they're tiny, they're nothing.
and the guy just kind of said, ugh. And he let go of all that bad energy and collapsed in the curb. The guy just let go and started crying about how he and his girlfriend had just got kicked out of a bar because she got into a fight with someone, and he was really upset about it. So he let all that out, and he just let it flow, while Darren Brown, listening for a little while, consoled the guy, and then just went on his way. Probably a lot like the way my client went on his way after he spoke to that audience. Because like I said, his energy was really different when he was up there in front of those folks. I could tell that he was really having fun. He was a little flamboyant, having a good time on stage, talking about how deeply the hypnosis work he had done had changed him. He said that it can still be hard sometimes. It isn't perfect or anything, and there aren't any perfect guarantees.
What is the end of looking for perfect was the beginning.
Sometimes it's just good enough. But what he had learned was that he could enjoy the experience of not smoking, of not biting his nails. He just let go of those old habits, because that's all they really were, was just some old habits that he felt good letting go of. And the audience really enjoyed his performance, even though I think with all the different places he went during his talk, it was really different than what they had expected. And that was totally fine with him. The impression I got was that he wouldn't have much minded if they hadn't cared for him. He really wasn't that worried about their opinions. Because after he got off the stage, just before he was going to go on his way, I asked him, where did that come from? And he said he just loves the chance to be up there and to be a big fat ham.
Maybe the moment you stop trying to succeed is the moment you stop.
So at this point, I don't know who you are, or where you are,
Maybe the moment you stop
or how much of
trying to
this
succeed
you've
is the moment you
absorbed
start.
at the unconscious level in the process of who you're becoming.
You feel safe and comfortable. We're gonna have a good time.
Feel safe and
After you notice you've
comfortable.
succeeded.
But I know, I trust your unconscious to completely disregard any of the suggestions I've made here today, obvious or otherwise, that are anything other than completely healthy and positive for you. And equally, I can trust your unconscious to allow these seeds you've planted here today to take root even more deeply, to sprout and grow even more fully in the days ahead. Because really, I don't know how well you'll find yourself adapting, how quickly you'll recenter, or how kindly you'll find yourself treating yourself as you do. How could I? I won't be there. So I won't know how many of the deep changes you may have been making are already finished, or how many of them will continue outside of your conscious awareness as you go through your day or as you sleep tonight and over the nights ahead. I don't know when and where you might find yourself surprised, maybe even delighted by some of the subtle or not so subtle new feelings and resources you may notice coming online in some of those places at some of those times where you may have expected them least in the past. And that's the pleasure of working with folks this way. And as you emerge from this session, energy and clarity coming back into your body if you're going back into your day, or beginning to drift off into a nice, restful, rejuvenating sleep, if that's the direction you're headed. I think it's nice to know that things can be better here on the other side of having listened and continuing to get better as those green shoots penetrate the surface, growing upwards, strong, tall, safe, regardless. The weather on the outside, growing taller and taller as things can just keep getting better and better for you.
You can either try to succeed by letting go of needing to succeed, or you can just let go of trying altogether and notice what happens instead. You can just let go of trying altogether. Let go of trying altogether. Trying altogether. Let go of trying altogether.
Expectations means everyone ends up happy.
Have a good time. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna have a good time.